he and I had 2 spells together, 1 month. We had January of 76 and then February and March of 77. So that's how I got to know Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And February 77, we come back from Bhubaneswar after he did the foundation stone, and then came back to Mayapur. And at that time I was starting to feel that my time was up, as a servant. I was making a few small mistakes here and there and being a bit less attentive than I should have been. And but at the same time Prabhupada was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And I realized in 77 February when Tamal came, we had a discussion and I told him, I said, I'm thinking about leaving the party.
You were speaking with Tamal Krishna?
Yeah. And he was, why? And I told him because I just, I'm at 1.5 years and I don't want to make any offences. I'm getting a little inattentive and so I feel like I need to have a break. And he was coming in with the opposite mentality. He told me, he said, I spent 8 years out in the field preaching because we all thought that was the way to please Prabhupada the best. But he said, now I feel very much that I want to just be with Prabhupada, whether he's here for 1 more year or 10 years. So I just want to be with Prabhupada physically because I've never had that kind of, chance to be with him on an extended basis. So we were, and I think I wrote in my diary that it seems to me that Prabhupada's changing his Leela. And he's moving into Nirjana Bhajan, and therefore I felt Krishna was inspiring me that you've had your time, now go out and use what you've learned from Prabhupada, do some preaching. And Tamal was getting the opposite
inspiration from within the heart by Krishna.
Yes. It was
actually this leads into the specific reason why I came to see you, which is not such a pleasant thing, unfortunately. A few days ago, Maheshwar Prabhu, our god brother, wrote to you, and he sent me a copy also, because he's done all the work on debunking all this poison theory and all this, and I've been encouraging him along the way and everything like that. So he wrote about Prabhupada's tooth, if you still have that, or what. I don't know if you replied to him. It's right there, yeah. Okay, so I'll reply when I get round to it.
Well, I did send a reply to
you did?
that.
Okay.
There's 4 or 5 teeth that I know about. I have one.
You have one?
Result to that. So that Prabhupada gave that to me.
You asked him, can I take it?
Yeah.
I remember you told me that, yeah. Like a very casual thing. Yeah, Buddha's tooth in Kandy in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
That's like the major center of worship for the whole hardcore Buddhist country.
Yeah. Well, at one time I did actually. I told Balaram when he was in Melbourne, this was in the 80s, that if you build in that, we got this 26,000 acre property, so we wanted to, establish some kind of a temple and community there. And what was I going to say?
You're going to make a temple for Prabhupada's tooth?
Yeah, so I'd read about that.
There's a whole temple, and it's just
Temple of the Tooth.
Just, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's said to be Buddha's tooth.
Yes. So I thought, we'll put him in a big temple. Somehow or another that project didn't work out. But I have I've got my tooth. Then there was one that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was wearing around his neck in the kavacha.
Where's that?
If you remind me, I'll give you the backstory on that one. It's quite funny. But anyway, there was another tooth which I was told is installed underneath Prabhupada's deity in New Vrindavan, in the palace.
Oh, so that's...
The King and Nanda actually apparently had a tooth which they installed the Murti there. Then there was, I won't say her name, but there's one of the ladies that was in India in the mid-70s. She apparently found one in Prabhupada's quarters, and I only found out about that about 3 or 4 years ago. I was staying at the manor and I got talking with her, and then she suddenly showed me she had Prabhupada's tooth hanging around her neck.
And you won't say her name for reasons known to yourself?
She didn't want to advertise it.
Oh, I see.
She's afraid that somebody will come.
That must be Moksha Lakshmi.
No.
No!
No.
Oh. Cleaning Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan? Oh.
No,
And she's in
Bombay.
England?
She was
In
found
Bombay.
Anyway.
Sarva Mangala.
No.
No! Oh, Shingash. Oh.
Anyway, she's got one. There's one at the Prabhupada's palace. I have this one.
Tamal Krishna Maharaj, what happened to the
Tamal Krishna Maharaj wrote in his will that his Prabhupada's tooth was to be put into his samadhi. So...
Which samadhi?
Huh?
Which samadhi?
Tamal Krishna Maharaj's.
So it's here?
Yes. Just, you walked past it on the way in. And was there another one? Me, Tamal. And I think that's it. The ones that I know of anyway.
So that's 4 we're looking at, yeah? Yourself? Yeah. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj is with
Oh no, I got the other one, that's right. It was when I was in LA in the early 90s. There was a German devotee there called Padma Garber. And
he's not there now. Anyway,
one evening I hear this banging on my door. So it was Padma. He said, you want to see what I've got? And he came in, he had a box. In the box was a pair of Prabhupada's shoes. There was his karatals, which I had carried around the world with it, with us. And one of Prabhupada's teeth.
Somehow he got them.
Well, I don't know where he got them from. Padma Garber bought them from a devotee, I think his name was Lolita now, who was living in the LA temple, on the fringes. I don't know where he got the stuff from, but he was, he wanted to sell it. So Padma Garber bought all these items for about $2,000.
Which was quite a lot at the time.
Yeah, I told him I would have, I would have spent $2,000 just to get the carousels. I got a tooth, but...
Oh, you bought the cartels from him?
No, I would have done, but he'd already sold them.
Oh!
I didn't get the chance.
Oh.
So Padma
shouldn't be sold. Anyway.
Padma, he bought them. Lalitanath sold them to Padma Garber.
Who I met only once years ago in North Carolina.
Right. Well, I'm not sure whether he's still there or not.
He was alive. No.
He had some kind of tumor at one point. So I don't know. I haven't seen any mention of him. But so that's all the teeth that I know about.
And so much puru collected for the museum in New York. What happened to all of that? Is it still there? Or?
That, it's hard to say. He set up that museum, and he was able to, get devotees to surrender artifacts that they had. And then, of course, he left later on. So I heard that he kind of split his collection up. He had them on display in New York for some time.
Yeah.
Then when he left ISKCON, he took a lot of the stuff with him. But where it went, I don't know. Like he had, Prabhupada's original.
And he's left this world altogether then.
Oh, years ago, yeah. So there may be some other one around somewhere. But yeah.
Maheshwar is interested in that too, I guess, especially maybe for chemical analysis or something.
Yeah, which, nobody's going to surrender to that anymore.
Well, maybe just take a little filing or something.
Well, at least with mine, it's been encased in resin.
Oh, so it's not possible.
Yeah, and the one that Pamela Gaba bought, that's also in a resin block.
Mm-hmm. I guess they all would be.
Yeah, so he was also asking about the hair also, right? Mayeshwar. And there was actually some samples were sent to America. There's from two sources. The first source was
hair clippers?
Huh?
Hair clippers? Was it?
Yeah, it was the hair clippers, and I had a batch of hair that I had given to the Melbourne temple. So when this whole poison thing came to the surface, then the GBC actually formed a committee headed by Balavanta to get, some of the hair, get it tested, and
That was for arsenic at the time.
yeah.
And then when it was discovered that it wasn't arsenic poisoning, all of a sudden it became cadmium poisoning.
Well, not all of a sudden.
Well, it took them 20 years to come up with it.
Yeah, you have to find something. Which I haven't bothered reading the latest accusation because...
Well, they did make, this Nityananda made a video, and then he goes through all this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and at the end of the video he says, and if anyone has any evidence, we'll give you $50,000. So it's just all confabulation.
Yeah, the GBC did reply that David Gaurahari from Brisbane, he wrote that book, Not That I Am Poisoned.
Right, for the arsenic thing, and then
Yes.
they dreamed up cadmium.
Yeah. Well, that was years ago. Now this newer one.
And Maheshwar has debunked that, the cadmium thing. You don't know about that? He wrote a whole book.
Well, that's what I say. I don't bother reading.
You don't
that
bother
stuff
because,
anymore.
But the thing is, it does affect people. That's the thing.
Yeah, it does. Newer devotees,
Some
it's
of
quite-
them, most of them don't. They're not bothered, but they
Right.
can be very disturbing.
Well, it has to be.
When someone comes out and says, "We have proof that Prabhupada was poisoned by his own disciples," it's very disturbing.
Yeah.
But they sound convincing, but then when you get into it, there's nothing there.
No, it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, but it does confuse people.
Yeah. Well, so I was asked to see if we could get if there was any hair fragments in Vrindavan from that hair clipper. So I persuaded David Shakti to send some sample to Balavanta. Balavanta was asked by the GBC to get it tested and see if it fits with the theory or not. So after I sent the clippers, and I think there was some very small fragments of his hair, and there was some other stuff that we sent, maybe some clothing or something. Balavanta decided that because he didn't have anything personally of Prabhupada's, that he decided not to send back the stuff that he got from the Vrindavan quarters. And Daiva Shakti was really upset with me because I, acted as the intermediary. And then Balavanta, I don't know whether he sent something back. I'm not sure whether he sent everything back, but his report was very inconclusive. He did a very poor job, and it was just not, good enough, I don't think. And in Melbourne, I had given the Melbourne temple a full set of cloth, socks, kurta, lungi, and I had some hair. So I persuaded Annie Ruda, the temple president in Melbourne, that I'd given you this hair sample that I had. I put it. They've got Prabhupada's room there in Melbourne, so they, I gave him the full kit, and the hair there was quite a bit of hair actually. So I persuaded Annie Ruda to send it to somebody called Yudhisthira Das, who at the time he had contacted me, and at the time I thought it was the Yudhisthira from Dallas, Tamal's disciple. And so I got some of the hair from the Melbourne temple and sent it to where it was supposed to go. And then he was supposed to return it after the testing was done, and he didn't do it. So over a period of a couple of years, I kept writing, and then he just suddenly, cut the communication and never bothered replying anymore. So for a few years, I kind of let it drop. Then later on, I'm just trying to think of the sequence, because this cadmium thing came up when they couldn't prove anything from it, from the arsenic, and the cadmium became the next focus. And I can't remember the circumstance, but somehow or another, this Yudhisthira, it turned out that he was actually Paranjan, and that he had impersonated me, or he had impersonated Yudhisthira, and because he thought that if he revealed who he really was, we wouldn't, give him any of the hair, which is quite correct. But the guy's a liar, and I got this message from him just before he put out the cadmium theory book. I had some exchange with him.
That was Nitan put out the cadmium theory.
Well,
not Paranjan.
Okay.
The
twin brothers. Anyway, the hair that let me see.
Hair that Paranjan had, or that
Paranjan /
Yudhishthira.
Yeah. He admitted that he had kept the hair, and he also revealed who he really was. And there was somebody I was in correspondence with about 4 or 5 years ago, a tutor. I don't know, you probably wouldn't know him because he was from America and then he was in Australia and then he left. But a tutor had picked up some information on the web, on the internet, and then that was being circulated. So I had a conversation with the tutor. He was kind of blooped out, very far gone. But I told him, I have another diary from 77, the last 6 weeks in Vrindavan, which is now published. But at that time, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, I had a long conversation with the tutor and I told him, I've got this other diary from, the last 6 weeks. And I said, apart from that, I was there for myself for the whole month of October. And he wanted me to it's just old age affects your brain.
Seems to be Parkinson's also?
Yeah, that's what was the saying?
You were talking about a tutor?
You're right. So a tutor was kind of pushing me a little bit. If you got the diary, then why don't you release it? So at that time I wasn't really back into doing any writing. But then a couple of years ago, when I retired from the management in the BRC, then I thought, well, okay, I'll put this out.
It's very similar to TKG's diary, because the major events are the same, right?
Yes.
In that period.
Yeah, it's just a slightly different angle.
Yeah.
And appreciation. I think Upendra may have kept some notes, maybe not. Because Tamal Krishna Maharaj was keeping up his diary. I had my diary. I think it was somebody else.
And yours was supplemented by the
Bhakti Maharaj
the recording. He put his book out also.
Right. So, yeah, there is some repetition there, but it.
Yeah, but it backs everything up, doesn't it?
Yes. So, have you read this, the cadmium report, or have you read that?
By Nityananda?
Yeah.
I saw that movie.
I haven't seen that either.
I saw that movie. Maybe I saw the cadmium report, little bits and pieces, but how much do you want to read? It's all very even the rebuttal by Maheshwar. It's very technical stuff.
Yeah.
Such as there's no. How do you? I never even heard of. When I heard of cadmium, cadmium, what's that? And then I had to look it up. What even cadmium is.
Right.
And then before the age of the internet, how people have been in Krishna consciousness since their youth, and still youth, happen to know that there's such a thing as cadmium poisoning, and how to get it and how to administer it, and just the whole thing. Plus the fact there's no. How many people are cadmium poisoned? If you even unintentionally, and just the whole thing is just it's so ridiculous that so unlikely. Even apart from the fact that. Well, the whole thing rests on the disciples of Srila Prabhupada being extremely evil.
Well, yeah, we'd have to be schizophrenic to be able to...
Yeah, extremely evil, and a lot of people saw in Tamal this very dominating side and all this and that. And he has his critics, there's no doubt. Even I remember Ravindra Swarup said that you couldn't write a biography of them because too many controversies and this and that. But you can fill in the rest yourself. I mean, it's just too much to say that they were deliberately conspiring to.
Well, on top of this, I don't know whether...
Bhakti Swami.
Yeah,
I mean, you can. Tamal was a tough guy, there's no doubt, but Bhakti Swami.
Yeah, it's absurd. And, there was
And
also,
Brahmananda was there. Brahmananda got a whiff of it. He'd have personally crushed everyone to death if he'd got even a whiff of any such thing, right?
Yeah, absurd. What was I going to say? During the last 6 months in India, Prabhupada said from April onwards, maybe up until the end of October, there must have been at least 5 or 6 doctors, Ayurvedic doctors, homeopathic doctors, allopathic doctors.
There were 2 Ghoshas, right? There was one from Allahabad and one came up from South India.
Yeah.
And there was one local Bengali who was allopathic doctor. He was in Vrindavan.
In Vrindavan. And then...
and there were the astrologers.
Dr. Gopal, there was...
Dr. Gopal, he was the Bengali, yeah.
No, he was the local man.
Yeah, but he was Bengali, I believe.
I'd have to check it.
Yeah, whatever.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
But as soon as we got back to Vrindavan, Dr. Gopal was brought in. Dr. Ghosh from Allahabad, Prabhupada's old friend, he came down. There was another Ghosh from Kodak Canal.
Yeah.
He had come up briefly in the middle of the year, but couldn't do anything.
And then there was Venu Gopal or Venudhari or something. Beni Madhav. He was a Bengali Ayurvedic physician who Prabhupada had him called, right? He was an old man. He was in Vrindavan. Bhakti Swami went to bring him. Beni Madhav, I think his name was.
Yes, something like that.
And then, of course, there was the Damodar Prasad.
Well, he was the final one.
He was the final one, and none of them...
He was expert.
None of them diagnosed any such thing.
Yeah, he came to Vrindavan and was there for the last couple of weeks.
What was his name? Damodar Prasad, was it something like that? Damodar something.
Damodar Prasad Shastri, something like that.
Yeah.
So he was a...
That's a major point. That none of them...
So none of those 6 or 7 different doctors, none of them saw any symptoms that made that, made it seem like Prabhupada had been poisoned.
Yeah. There is that one thing, it's clear on the tape, Prabhupada says, Humko poisoned dear. But they've given me poison. That's there, clearly.
Right. But that depends.
That can mean they also, I believe that was some, I don't know, Maheshwar set up, but that can be with the, that one medicine they gave, that Mithu Sanjeevani, was it, or something?
No, what's it called?
Some special medicine. But
some very strong, powerful medicine.
Yeah, but if it
Makaradwaj.
Makaradwaj, yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's not in the right proportions, and it can act as a poison also.
Yeah, and Prabhupada said that, if you've got no digestion and you try to eat,
that's
poison. Also poison. And, I mean, there is a direct statement from Prabhupada where he says, he's talking about this with Tamala or whoever, and he said, not that I am poisoned.
Right. That was the title of the rebuttal book.
Yes. So... I mean, this whole cadmium thing, I haven't got the details of it, but just the fact that there's so many doctors that,
That in itself,
it just refutes anything that they can,
Anyway, you're preaching to the choir here.
Yes.
I mean, I do have my differences of opinion with the leadership on some things, but this isn't one of them. In fact, well, I do have a difference of why are they not promoting it? Actually, they should. The Maheshwar's work.
Yeah, it's a good question. And apparently last year, according to the latest emails, the GBC had asked, was it Maheshwar or somebody, I think it was Maheshwar, to look into the whole thing, which he did. And then apparently last year, for some reason or another, the GBC's just decided to drop it.
I believe they said they'll make a statement in due course of time, and then they didn't, but Maheshwar came out with everything that they need to make a statement.
Right.
And then, but they said, well, we decided we're not going to say anything about it, which then is used by the other side to throw Maheshwar's work into the bin.
Yes.
Which is not understandable at all, because he's done a very, very thorough job, every possible angle.
Yes.
Spent a lot of time and energy. And he wants to get into the whole rhythmic thing, but he's discouraged now. But I'm encouraged. Anyway, do it, because even if the GBC don't support it, it's there. The facts speak for themselves.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just another GBC just
inconceivable action. Let's be polite here.
Well, and the whole thing is motivated by envy, that's all. The GBC made some mistakes in the early days, and these people became.
Yeah. Even the whole rhythmic thing was anyway. It was. You have an idea and you create a philosophy afterwards.
Yes.
Because no one had dreamed of it until a few years after Prabhupada left.
Yeah, the poison thing.
That also.
That came out at the end of the 80s.
Yeah. So it'll go on. It'll go on. Yeah. They say there are different theories about Jesus also, so many different theories.
Yes.
Hundreds of theories about Jesus.
And that's why I think Tamal Krishna Maharaj was brought in as the permanent secretary, because he's one of the few people in ISKCON that was tough enough to withstand all this criticism and blame, the blame game. I mean,
you mean after? I don't follow that exactly.
After Prabhupada's departure.
But you mean Prabhupada brought him in or Krishna brought him in?
Krishna brought him in. That's what I think. Tamal was probably the one person who could take that kind of, without going mad.
Yeah, it'd be very happy to say that you poisoned your spiritual master.
Yeah.
I spoke to Swami about it actually. It was not long before he left. I said, why aren't the GBC on this? Because it's causing disturbance. And then he laughed and said, look, now Tamal Krishna is left, I'm the main accused. And he didn't seem to I was surprised. He didn't seem to...
Well, we've been dealing with it for years.
Yeah, I guess.
It just becomes tiresome. He's got something wrong with him. And Paranjan still told the same. He's got his so-called Pada newsletter. They're just very, very envious people. And it doesn't matter how many times you knock down a theory, then they'll come up with a new one. Arsenic and
it'll go on. Yeah. Like I said about Jesus, there are hundreds of theories and about all that kinds of different things.
And Maheshwar himself, he said it took him 3 years to just plow through all this stuff.
All the stuff they put out.
Yeah.
Actually, I did read their book. No, I skim-read through it, the cadmium thing. There's a whole huge section about how Napoleon was said to be poisoned. It's got absolutely whether he was or not has got absolutely no relevance whatsoever.
He used that to back up some statements he'd made about arsenic poisoning and what were the symptoms, and he compared it, I think, to Napoleon. It was said that Napoleon...
I think it was in the cadmium book also.
Maybe. I mean, it's probably reiterating some stuff.
Yeah, it's got no relevance to whatever happened to the body. There's no relevance. And he gave a list of so many people who had been poisoned by their close associates in history. As if it's compelling evidence.
And apart from that, anyway, I mean, that thing about Napoleon, arsenic poisoning has some very clear symptoms and manifestations in the body. You know, your fingernails go black and so many things, none of which Prabhupada had. So he had to, search to find more evidence to back up what he was saying. The cadmium one is, I've never I haven't even seen the book, and I haven't read anything on the internet about it either.
No, I'm concerned because I get queries from devotees who are disturbed.
Yeah, it's bound to put some doubt in the minds.
Yeah. Because I do speak about various issues related to Prabhupada and the movement and this and that, which some devotees appreciate. They actually speak about the issues. They're not just. I try to give an objective view of this and that. But maybe for that reason I get queries like this. What's going on? Can you say something about it? So there are devotees who are disturbed, and it'll go on. At one time, even there was came in the Indian press. The section of the Indian press was pushing that. You might have seen. This is years ago.
Some TV show on South India somewhere, I think.
The Indian public tend to be very generous with sadhus, but once it's seen that they're not really a sadhu at all, then they really don't like it. They lose their credibility.
Newspapers, TV shows, you read them, you throw the paper away. Then,
Well, it has this influence, just like there's this Nityananda Paramahamsa in South India, and he was exposed as being just a mundane person dancing with young girls. He lost most of his following, but he's going on. Still people follow him.
Yeah. Sai Baba.
Well, he lost a lot of his credibility with the pedophilia revelations.
Yeah.
The sheen he had, a lot of it was worn off because of that.
Well, there's a book by some professor in America about Ramakrishna.
Right, but that hasn't affected the Indian public.
Well, it hasn't because the government suppressed it.
Jeffrey, something or other. Kali's Child, I think.
Yes, right, Kali's Child. And in there he says the evidence very clear that he was abusing young boys. And when the Bengal government saw that, they immediately...
Jeffrey Archer, was it? Something like that.
No, not Archer, no. I forget his name now. Some professor or something. Ravindra Swarup knows the guy. He knows. So they just... Yeah, in India they have this kind of mentality that no matter what happens, like it's some kind of leela or...
Well, Ramakrishna is too popular, but it was in Haryana that the Ram Rahim, some guru, they put him in prison, and they BJP was in power at the centre and in Haryana at the time, and he was supporting the BJP. But I don't know what there must be some politics behind it, but they stuck him in prison. So it's difficult to understand. There was a book written years ago, it's in Urdu, and it's pointing out the defects of Hazrat Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that's banned by the Indian. It's a censored book. People don't even know it exists. I just looked it up when I was looking up censored books at a time when my book was more or less being censored. And you told me, to my surprise, that even your book was censored.
Yeah.
Really? I was really shocked.
Because at that time the Narayan Maharaj clique was just developing. And then, I just put out whatever happened. And then they flipped out because it was putting certain people in the Gaudiya mat in a bad light. So their mood was that the war is over, so we should cooperate with the Gaudiya mat. And
but anyway, Satyameva Jayate worked out in the end.
Yeah, the first volume, when I put it out, as soon as certain people saw, these negative comments that Prabhupada made about his God brothers,
A lot of heavy comments.
then
A lot of heavy comments. But I also feel, in general, that the war is over.
yeah, well, it is.
No.
Because there's none of the God brothers left.
Yeah.
Their gurus are all younger than our gurus.
Yeah, and they're mostly very appreciative also.
And you can. There's nothing wrong with being frank, as long as it's objective. And I always go on, work on the basis that, this is, it's not an opinion, it's actual,
Right.
factual information.
Try not to put a slant on it, although it's to be absolutely 100% objective is probably not possible for
Right.
humans, but as you saw it, as you perceived it.
Yeah, that's clear. Anyway, we've got good relationships now with most of the, at least the main Gaudiya acharyas here in Mayapur. And people like Bodhayan Maharaj, she's very friendly.
Especially,
So things have improved a lot, but those things happened.
Yeah.
And if we're going to write history, we
Right,
have to.
right.
I got a letter from somebody in America after Pushpa Krishna died. So he had 4 months on Prabhupada's party when I was on it, and then he fell down. He had his problems and whatever, and he actually wrote a letter to me, Pushpa Krishna.
When?
A few years back, complaining that, because a new volume had just come out, I think it's probably 2005 or something, and there were some things that had happened with him and Prabhupada, and so apparently his widow, I was told, she was thinking about bringing a court case against me for some of the comments that I made about Pushpa Krishna, and he wrote to me, and I told him, well, what can I do?
Wait, we're getting a bit mixed up in time because you're talking about his widow, but prior to that he'd written to you. Yeah.
I just told him, if you don't put it in, then you're modifying its history. There's lessons to be learned from all of this. If I don't put it in, where do I, all right. It's like a bit like...
We don't see the real full Prabhupada, do we?
No, you don't. You get a sugar-coated version of it. So he was always upset with me for publishing something that actually happened. So I told him, what do you want? Do you want the truth? Or do you want to pretend that you weren't there? In which case, where do you finish? Like,
then half your book is gone.
well, not just that.
But I mean, if you want to leave out all the less palatable stuff,
yeah.
a lot of your book is gone, and a lot of who Prabhupada is lost also.
Yes, that's the point.
Because he was dealing with these things all the time.
Yeah. And my intention was to show how Prabhupada dealt with various situations.
Which is it's a very, very important part of seeing the Acharya.
Yes.
How he is and who he is.
It's not a hagiography. It's just an attempt to be, as frank and objective as possible.
Without putting in the spear.
Yeah.
Just like that. Yeah.
I wanted to show the reader at least enough so that they could understand what was going on. Otherwise, like with Madhavisa, he had problems, and there was more than one woman involved. There's Prabhupada's reaction when he found out that Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Pushta Krishna put out something to all the temples that Madhavisa was having difficulty. Then Prabhupada, Pushta Krishna reported to Prabhupada that he'd rung up all the temples in Madhavisa's zone and warned them to watch out. They were thinking maybe something in New York. They were thinking that maybe he tried to take a vehicle or some money or whatever. So when Pushta Krishna went back into Prabhupada's room, and he told Prabhupada what he'd done in informing all Madhavisa's temples. I heard Prabhupada shout. I was further down the hallway, and I jumped up and came into the room, and then Prabhupada was. He was furious. I don't recall seeing him ever be as angry as that when he found out that they'd put the word out. Later on, I had a good discussion this is like in the early 90s, I had a good discussion with Pushta Krishna about that whole episode. And he told me very frankly, he said he said when he went in and told Prabhupada about what he'd done in ringing up the temples and everything, Prabhupada yelled at him. He said, "You murderer!" He really blasted him. And just Pushta Krishna, many years later, in the early 90s, I happened to be, I had to ring him for some stuff from Korma's book. And so he took me to task on what I'd written about, his dealings with Prabhupada Pushta Krishna. And he told me, he said, when I went into Prabhupada's room and he yelled at me, "You murderer," he said that put a crack in my heart. And after he left, first the party, after a couple of months, then he left his duties in ISKCON. He told me that chastisement that he got, it made a doubt in his relationship with Prabhupada. He said, "I accept that Prabhupada is, pure devotee, but I do think that he didn't know how to deal with his Western disciples because he was from a social."
And he told you that years later?
Yes.
And he still maintained that thought?
No, well, what happened was that I thought this, I should talk to him. So we had a long discussion, maybe about an hour. And it was the first time that he had told anybody, including his wife, that he had this crack in his relationship with Prabhupada. And so I just preached to him. I told him, Prabhupada's your guru.
And he was maintaining that up to that time?
Yeah, this is like 1990s.
Even though he'd been back in Krishna consciousness with Govinda Maharaj and everything?
Yes, so that was all going on, but he had not dealt with this doubt that he had in the way that Prabhupada had dealt with him in 76, when we were in Hawaii. So he'd been carrying this weight around with him. And so I preached to him basically and told him Prabhupada can do whatever he likes. He's our guru, he's our complete shelter. If he wanted to shout at you, you should take that. That's a good thing, to get you out of Maya. And anyway, we had a long talk about
Extremely heavy, to call him a murderer.
Yes.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But Prabhupada, he would chastise those what I can see, because he would chastise those who he thought could take it.
Yes, well that's another point.
The people he was most heavy with was Tamal and Harikesh, right?
Yeah.
They could take
Tamal
it.
going to China and Harikesh being kicked back to Eastern Europe. But we pushed to Krishna. I went over the whole thing with him. And a couple of years later, I was here in Mayapur. I'd just come out of the temple into the courtyard there, and Pushta Krishna was there with his wife, and I guess they had some kid. And he was all bright and, pally, and he said, you'll be glad to know that I've managed to repair my relationship with Prabhupada. So that was his motivation for that, was what I told him. That, Prabhupada has not done anything. There's no fault in Prabhupada in chastising one of his disciples. And you are making a judgment about your own spiritual master in terms of his competency, which you can't do. So he listened to it, and so middle of the 90s when he came here, he told me that he managed to deal with that chastisement and just the feelings that he had against Prabhupada for, he thought Prabhupada overdid it. He could have been nicer in his response.
I must say that I'm in the middle of compiling a major book on Srila Prabhupada and everything, the mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada, starting off with his, not going through the history much, because that's in the Lilamrita and other books, but the position of Srila Prabhupada as seen by himself and others. So far about 6,000 quotes from Prabhupada and from others also. Thomas Hopkins, I quote him a lot. He was great in the things he said. So anyway, I'm not sure whether I'm going to include them or not. I think I probably will, but there's a large section is Prabhupada's dealings with his wayward disciples. That's the way I put it, wayward disciples. And there are two case histories I want to put. One I've done of Siddha Swarup. It's not as complete as it could be. Right. There's like an overview. And of course I'm taking from various sources the conversations, and then there's the Life with the Perfect Master by Sasrat Maharaj. There's a lot of stuff in there. And then there's a book by one Mataji in New Zealand, and this and that. So there are a few sources. And your book, of course. Yeah. I mostly quote Sasrat Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and yourself. You three obviously quoted more than others. Right. So it was it's hard to understand why Srila Prabhupada dealt with it in that way. He dealt with people very differently because he was causing so many problems. Yes. And sometimes Prabhupada would say, yes, he's deviant. One time Siddha in Prabhupada's presence say, oh, I'm just offensive. And Prabhupada said, oh, so you're accepted. But he kept on encouraging him, and it's very, despite everything, it's very hard to understand.
Well, Prabhupada did time in Vrindavan. Arjuna and Tamopaha, they'd been on the Namhata party, and they wanted to open up a centre in the Philippines. Siddha Swarup had this Sadama Vipra, so-called sannyasi, who was nothing more than a Gunda. And Prabhupada knew that. I mean, Prabhupada actually told us, he said they're not in our line.
Yeah, and he also said Prabhupada said they like to give donations. Something humorous, Prabhupada said.
Yes.
But at the same time, he was encouraging, and the last exchange he had with him was very encouraging also. So, I mean, I'm just giving that as one example, how Srila Prabhupada dealt with different people in very different ways. With Kirtananda, he was, from the very beginning, he was, the whole history there. But then he accepted him back with full honor and respect, and backed up his project. And he liked Kirtananda. Yes. He liked him. And but then when you see Kanupriya and Jamadagni, he just didn't even want to talk to them. And they had what you might say some valid concerns also, but he was just
right. Well, Jamadagni, the following year in '76, he wrote to Prabhupada and apologized.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Prabhupada replied and said, yeah, that's all right, now go on with your service.
Oh, really? Is it? Yeah.
It's somewhere in that 1 month in Hawaii.
Oh. Let me write that down.
But Kanupriya never apologized.
But later on they both went off anyway. Completely.
Yeah, at least Jamadagni had some respect for Prabhupada. But Kanupriya, it was just...
And recently there was one book put out by Daughters of Prabhupada or something like that, and Kanupriya's wife, Caitanya-caritamrta, she said, she writes how my husband just went off and this and that.
Yeah.
She's very straightforward about it.
Yeah.
But it's just, to me it's inconceivable how Srila Prabhupada dealt with different people. I can't work it out with my tiny brain.
Yeah, well, like 76, Prabhupada gave sannyas to, I think, 9 devotees. The same year, 8 or 9 sannyasis fell down. And still Prabhupada went on. He had his methodology, if you like, and he had this tremendous compassion, so that even if they, given the circumstances that Krishna consciousness was, just beginning, he had to do so many radical things to get it.
Prabhu Vishnu Swami, I always call him Prabhu Vishnu Swami. I just can't get used to him after so many years. He told me that Prabhupada had said, I never heard any verification, maybe you could say, that someone had asked him why he's giving sannyas to young men, and something like, you have to cook the sabji before, when it's ready, and not, otherwise it's too old, or something like that, I can't remember. When it's just ready, then you cook it. Otherwise it goes off, something like that. I have to ask him again. I don't know where he got it from. You don't know anything like that. Yeah, it's...
Well, and again, in the way Tamal had come to make his report about going to China, Drishadumna was with him. Drishadumna said this on a video.
Battlefield Commission.
Yes, the Battlefield Commission.
Right. None of you are qualified, but it's a Battlefield Commission. Yeah. That makes sense.
And somebody may get through or not. He probably knew what he was doing. I mean, like the thing with China. I mean, after, you know, the explosion there in Mayapur during the festival, and it was going on for weeks, back and forth, till Prabhupada finally, you know, stopped the debate, and Tamal was sent to China. 2 months later, Tamal turns up in Hawaii with Drustajumna. They've done a really thorough job.
He's sick. Dossier or something.
Yeah. A reportage. And Prabhupada was just like, he just dismissed it. That's all right, don't worry about that now. I mean, it was clear to me that Prabhupada had, you know, in Mayapur, when he sent him to China, yeah, he did want some preaching to go on in China, but he didn't regard it as being important. At that point, what was important was to get Tamal Krishna Maharaj out of America.
Isn't that amazing? Considering, I mean, the huge Bhakti streets making devotees.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Huh? It's like, yes, Vaishnava Kriya Mudra Vigayana Bhujai. And then the ultimate result is that Tamal did start up China, and now it's going on with hundreds and thousands of devotees.
Well, you know, after he and Drustajumna have been given the China mission,
right, and 2 months later, then Prabhupada just
dismissed it. That's not important. And Tamal ended up getting more territory in America than he had before, because they put it Madhavisa.
Right, New York,
so he got
Gita
New York,
Nagari,
all that northeast block there.
Prime spots.
Yeah.
The iconic Manhattan Temple.
The new 11-story building in Manhattan. In fact, you know.
Anyway, people will be writing about Prabhupada for generations.
Hopefully.
Prabhu, I'm
Okay.
going to take your leave. I should do because
Pleasure.
I'm on a busy schedule here. I shouldn't
How
do
long are you staying?
till Tuesday.
Oh, so after Nishringa Chaturthi.
Yeah, one more day and then
Very good.
off again. I came specifically with that tooth query, but I knew there'd be some.
Have you seen the tooth?
I have, but not this time.
All right. Well, we'll give everybody.
All right,
a
everyone
chance.
can have darshan of Srila Prabhupada's tooth. One is Srila Prabhupada's teeth. Move. Jai. Haribo.
Haribo.
Like to be eaten by Prabhupada. Can I put on everyone's head?
Yes. That's the lower left canine.
Reminds me of Vrindavan, the disappearance day, the chapter. Anyone else? Madhu Kanta?
Yeah, good. Again.
Again, okay, very intelligent. Haribo.
This deity of Prabhupada was given to me by Indra
Oh,
in '89. I got some.
mercy comes to you without,
Well,
that's called a haituki kripa. You don't even look for it and it just comes.
I just started getting the feeling I wanted to start doing regular puja every day.
And then Prabhupada came.
And I looked around here for one day. There was no nice murtis of Prabhupada, so I went to Vrindavan, and then I went up into the Gurukul, and I saw Andrew there. I didn't go up there to see him. Actually, I was looking for Burijob, but since he was there, we got chatting, and then I thought, oh, he would know where to get a nice deity of Prabhupada. So what his altar was like, right? And there was some sackcloth hanging over one of the shelves at the side. And he puts his hand behind the sackcloth and pulls out this murti of Prabhupada. He said somebody gave him to me. I'm I already have Prabhupada on my altar, so you can have him. So, which is Krishna comes when he wants to come.
Right. Maybe you don't all even know who all of you are here. The Hari Shai Prabhu was Srila Prabhupada's personal servant for 2.5 years, and he's written extensive books about that. I don't know if you even know. The service of being with Prabhupada is a huge service, and in writing the books is from my, whatever you want to call it, subjective point of view, at least as important.
Very important. When we're all gone, which is just going to be in a couple of years' time. The only thing that will leave is
Yeah.
the books.
Tell me about leaving.
Okay, Lawrence. No way.
Come on.
Together.
Yeah, still quite strong, huh?
All right. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Anybody from Salem? No. I was down there a year and a half ago.
Right. They very much appreciate your visit. They're looking forward
Yeah,
to
it was
going there again.
Yeah, let's see how we go in the health. Okay.
You're kind of from Salem. You've been in it, but you haven't been there for some time.
Mhm.
You were there for 4 or 5 years?
Yes.
Something like that. But he's Bengali. Kind of. He's pan-Indian.
Parents are there.
He's an army boy, which means... Yeah, he was raised by army parents, which means all over India.
You can bless us, Prabhuji. We can also serve our Guru Maharaj like you served Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, no one can serve like Hari Shai. No blame to you, but the way Hari Shai Prabhu served Prabhupada is...
I have to stand here and tolerate all this. All right.
Haribol, Jai